Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
I really love that the focus of the film seems to be about her finding herself, and she seems to do that through interacting with so many women that have really lovely roles. It's like a duvet day film, like get all your baked goods around you and get your duvet on and just kind of just get back into like a lovely, like sweet little thing that's just, yeah, it's like comfort food. It's lovely. They're living their own independent life in this lovely way, and I definitely ship them in my head. I definitely think they're an old gay couple. They have to be. I wouldn't say you're riveted every time you watch it, but it's just like a warm hug. It's lovely.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. I'm joined by Helen.
Hello.
Faye.
Hi.
And Rachel.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about Kikis Delivery Service.
Thank you as always to the mighty people for the mighty, mighty tunes. And thanks to Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills.
Please do remember to write a review and rate us on Apple Podcasts and anywhere you can do where you listen to the podcast, because it really does help us.
And you can join in the conversation with us on Twitter
at FlixWatcherPod and on Instagram
at Flixwatcher. Hello and welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Joining us today we have Faye and Rachel. If you would like to say hello to our listeners and tell them a little bit more about who you are and what you do, please.
Cool. Hi. So I'm Rachel, and we do a podcast called Her Dark Materials, where we read through Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials novels a chapter at a time, and we kind of keep it spoiler free so people can read along with us.
Yep, and I'm Faye, and I have nothing to add to what Rachel just said. She described our podcast perfectly.
So what did you guys make of the His Dark Materials adaptation that came out just before Christmas?
We love it. We really enjoy it. So we have some bonus episodes on the podcast where we chat about that as well. And it's really, really exciting. And it's really nice to see quite a faithful adaptation hitting the screen.
Yeah, we really enjoyed it, especially a lot of the casting choices. I really loved Lin-Manuel Miranda as Lee Scoresby. And if you listen to our TV show episodes, you'll just hear me just talking about him all the time. But yeah, I thought it was really good. I came to the books for the first time last year, so I've never seen The Golden Compass, so it's the first adaptation I've ever seen, and yeah, I thought they did a really, really good job, and looking forward to the second season. Yeah,
because before it started, some people were concerned about Lee Scoresby's casting as Lin-Manuel Miranda, and some people quite disturbed about Ruth Wilson. But I thought she was like, as soon as she was announced, I was like, yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect, Marissa Coulter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She was so good. Yeah. We loved her as Mrs. Coulter. I can't say a bad word about her performance. I think she did such a great job.
And having seen Daphne Keane in Logan, I thought that was a great casting as well for Lyra. So I thought it was a really good casting all around, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we are here talking today about Kikis Delivery Service, which is brought to us by you, Rachel.
Yeah.
So can you tell us, first of all, why you chose it and give us a synopsis in 1 minute or less?
Okay, so I chose it because the world's kind of scary at the moment, and it's just a really good, kind-hearted, sweet little film.
Why is the world scary? What do you mean by that?
I don't know what you're talking about. Because I was very overexcited about Studio Ghibli films finally making it onto Netflix. And I was looking through the ones that were added, and Kikis Delivery Service is one of my top films. I really enjoy it. I was just very happy to see it on there. But now I'm thinking it is my comfort food of films, and so it's perfect for the situation we're all in now, hiding in our homes. So
can you tell us what the synopsis is in 1 minute or less?
I can try. Kikis Delivery Service is kind of a kind-hearted, warm, like, family film. It's about a young witch who, when she turns 13, there's a practice that witches go out into the world for a year to spend the year fending for themselves and learning a bit about who they are. She goes from her tiny town to the big city and kind of struggles to find her footing and maybe loses confidence a bit. But through the people that she meets, especially a lot of women that she meets, she manages to find her footing and she starts up her own little delivery service. And after a crisis of confidence where she forgets how to fly, she saves the day in a really beautiful way, and it's lovely.
So, you talked about Ghibli coming to Netflix. Are you a big Ghibli-phile? Have you listened to any of the Ghibli Tech podcasts or anything like that?
I haven't actually listened to any Ghibli podcasts, but I grew up on quite a few of the films. I can't say I've watched all of the films. I've yet to watch Pom Poko, which I've heard is great, and Porco Rosso. They're some of the ones they're on my list. But I grew up very much in love with Howl's Moving Castle and Princess Mononoke and films like that. So, and Kiki's Delivery Service is just like a perfect level of sweetness.
What about you, Faye and Helen? Are you fans of the Ghibli?
It's actually my first. It's my second anime film that I've ever watched. So the first one that I ever saw was My Neighbor Totoro, and then this one because Rach selected it for the podcast. So I'm very new to this world.
So I've probably seen maybe about 10 or so, but this is one that I had seen before and did have on DVD, and I just really like it.
Yeah, I kind of came late to the Studio Ghibli sphere. I knew about them a lot, and I think the first opportunity I had to watch any of their films was when they came to More 4 and stuff, and Channel 4. They did like a Ghibli season when I think it was when Howl's Moving Castle came out, but I never watched it then. And like Helen says, it just became a bit odd to get hold of them, and they just seemed kind of like elusive. So when it was announced it came on Netflix, I was like, yeah, finally. So I think I've only seen like 4 or 5, including a couple actually in the cinema. So, but they always have that distinctive, well, not always, but they typically have like, you see one shot of the film or one frame that you like, that's a Ghibli film. And that's really, it's really kind of impressive that's the thing, because not even Pixar has that kind of stamp of authority just based on how they're drawn and how they are put together. What are your thoughts, Rachel?
I guess like the Ghibli films are so iconic that particularly watching Kiki's Delivery Service, the background painting is just beautiful. A lot of the establishing shots of some of the houses and the scenery is breathtaking. You could definitely just have some of those establishing shots as a painting on your wall, but before you even think about putting it in an animation. That's part of what I love about the films as well. It's just I think it's something with hand-drawn animation that comes through as well. It's everything is so considered, every moment.
So I've got some friends who say they don't like how the animation looks or how they're drawn, Studio Ghibli, which I think is unfair. It doesn't look perhaps as refined as the hand-drawn version of The Lion King, for example. But I still think it has a really nice, beautiful aesthetic style to them all.
Has the one on Netflix, obviously the one that we've all watched, have they been like restored at all? Because I thought it looked really, really good. I thought the animation looked good. I thought just the general like quality of it looked really good. I'm not sure if they've been restored in any way from when they were first made in the 80s.
I'd be surprised if they hadn't been, because it's been such a big kind of fanfare about them coming onto Netflix, and would have been, I think part of the reason they haven't been so easy to get hold of is because they want to make sure there's some level of quality to the output of them. But I couldn't tell you that for sure.
I know that the version that we have on Netflix is the 2010 Disney release, because there's another English, I assume you guys all probably watched it with the English dubbing.
I started in the English version, with the Japanese version. I was just a bit tired, so I switched to the English dub.
So I think I probably watched the English version first as a younger kid, and then will have gone and watched the Japanese version. Last night I did watch the English version because I was feeling very lazy. And you've got to be in the mood for reading if you're going to watch with subtitles. And sometimes it doesn't strike, but I do think it is a shame because I do much prefer the soundtrack. And the soundtracks are very different between the English and the Japanese version. And I think you're right, Jiji has a completely different vibe.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, there's like some weird 2010 recording of somebody singing about flying and finding yourself. And it's very 2010 Disney film kind of song vibes, which is a real shame because I would highly recommend, even if you don't have the energy to do the subtitled version, just watch the first and the last bit for those two songs because they're lovely, and the little 1950s kind of vibe that they put out is lovely.
I feel like I need to watch the Japanese version because we, like Rach said, when we watched the English one, and I'm coming at it from like having no knowledge of it. And I remember messaging Rach being like, oh, I really like Kirsten Dunst. I think she's doing a great job. And oh, I really like the music. And then Rach was saying like, oh, well, actually, there's like much better music in the Japanese version. She also mentioned like Gigi's voice as well being different. And I did listen to like a bit of a YouTube clip of the Japanese version of Gigi's voice. And I'm like, I think I might need to watch the Japanese version now. But as a person coming at it from like with no background knowledge, I did just enjoy it for what it was. But now learning that there's potentially maybe an even better version, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I need to go back and do some watching of that or reading of that.
Yeah, I was just checking out who the voice of Jiji was, and it was a chap called Phil Hartman, who most people know as being, he was like Lionel Hutz and stuff like that in The Simpsons. And he kind of died tragically. I think his wife killed him. His wife murdered him. I was actually quite annoyed by Gigi's voice, which is, it's quite a shame that we've all kind of came up on that side of the tracks.
It turns the character into a completely different character, and the bit that I switched over, I was just totally like, oh, this is awful. I can't listen to it anymore because Gigi's not like that. So it's kind of like really funny because Gigi's like all the way through just a little bit like, oh, can we kind of have to do these sort of things, and a little bit like reluctant and blah blah blah, but not in like a really annoying way, which I got from the like 2 seconds that I heard of American male Gigi Simpson's voice, man.
Yeah, it feels like they took Gigi and made him into more of a Disney sidekick than perhaps the role that he actually plays in the original film or the original version of it, I think.
So what do you mean? So in the original version, he's there. I mean, however he's cast is still kind of like the sidekick to the main female character, which is like the standard Disney thing, isn't it? So
he just feels...
How do you feel his voice casting?
I feel like it makes him more of like a sassy one-liner character than the actual like supportive friend / like companion. I don't know. It's quite an odd one.
You talked about the female companionship side of things that Kiki experiences. Could you talk a bit about that?
I really love how well this film passes the Bechdel test with flying colours. Whilst Kiki does have kind of a relationship with the young boy that she meets in Tombo, it's so not the focus of the film. And I really love that the focus of the film seems to be about her finding herself, and she seems to do that through interacting with so many women that have really lovely roles. So Asono, the baker, she is just this like strong business owning woman, and she's pregnant and she's getting the job done, and I'll take in this like little girl that, oh my goodness, she can fly, amazing, you'll be useful. And then helping out the old ladies in the house, baking the pie, and just they're living their own independent life in this lovely way. And I definitely ship them in my head. I definitely think they're an old gay couple. They have to be. And then meeting the artist in the woods, who again also definitely gay. She just like guides her through this like 10th life crisis that she's having, in just this really lovely way that has nothing to do with like a typical kind of princessy protagonist storyline. It's not about any of the boys in her life at all, and that's lovely. It's just to do with her finding herself and finding her feet in the world. And yeah, I feel like all the women seem to like be the people that help her find that path.
I really like that description, because I hadn't even picked up on that. I knew the main protagonists the main companions were female, but hadn't really thought about it as a difference to how we normally see things. And when you said that, another thing that came to mind was that the other main male character we have in the storyline doesn't really speak. Asono's the guy that works at Asono's partner, I don't know, it wasn't really made clear. But he doesn't really have, like, he doesn't speak in the film, which is quite interesting for such a massive guy. And one thing I kind of didn't quite like is how quickly Kiki got annoyed with Tombo, because he seemed initially just to be trying to be like generally helpful, but I mean that's maybe part of the story they're trying to tell.
Her mission is kind of to make the best of her skills, so he's just kind of like a bit of annoying distraction that isn't really going to help her in that way. And then in the end she realizes that, you know, she actually needs to use her skills to help save him.
No, I get the him being an annoyance bit, but is the way she took against him so quickly at the start when he was the one that managed to distract the policeman, and then he came along and said, "Hey, by the way, I was the guy that did that," and she got annoyed because they weren't introduced. And maybe there's that kind of formality I wasn't aware of. But yourself, Faye, what were your thoughts on the characters in the film?
Yeah, I really liked it. I didn't know, and like I said, I didn't know much about it before I started to watch it, and yeah, just the female characters were really great. I love what Rach said about how you can read a lot of them as being queer, which is amazing. I always love that, and I love that it wasn't about a love story. I mean, I know, like we mentioned, there is Tombo, and they do have like some kind of relationship at the end, whether it's just a friendship. We're not really clear on that, but I love the fact that it's more about her growing and her speaking to and learning from older women that have gone through the same things that she's going through and have helped her see like what she needs to do or when she needs to look inside herself and draw that inspiration from life. And I think that's really special. I don't think there's not a lot of films that are especially potentially aimed at children as well that have that offering, and I really like that.
Do you think, how old are you, Rachel, when you first saw this? Sorry.
13, 14 maybe. Not like a young child, yeah.
Did you feel it was a film for children? Because this is one thing I like about Ghibli films that I've watched, is that obviously animation attracts the younger viewer, but they don't necessarily try and pander to the younger viewer. I didn't think they pandered to him, but that storyline, as Faye was saying there, I think it does resonate. It just makes it a lot more acceptable than a lot of more westernized stories would be, I guess.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think when I watched it the first time through, I was probably just like, there's a talking cat and it's great. It's lovely. And I think the general impression I got was, it's lovely. There's a bakery. She flies. She meets an artist in the woods. Like, I think and it's not until this view through that I've kind of, a lot more of the themes have kind of settled with me. And I've kind of picked out more of the like female empowerment things that are happening in the film, because I think the first time when you're viewing it as a kid, it is very much like, oh my God, I want a talking cat friend. I mean, I still want a talking cat friend.
Didn't Sabrina the Teenage Witch have a talking cat friend as well?
She sure did.
What did you guys make of Kiki's loss of confidence in her witch powers and how she kind of overcame that side of things?
I really loved it. As an artist as well, I really resonated with the conversation she has with the artist about kind of when you have something that you love and that makes your spirit fly, when you start doing that as your job, it can dampen that spirit and it can become harder to find that inspiration. And that being the message just kind of really hit home this time through for me, because I'm kind of being an artist full time now. And that message for like creative people doing their creative thing as their job really kind of pushed home for me.
There's lots of kind of analogies to like writer's block, for example, and there's lots of, you know, even like sports people where they're just not on the ball, and I think a lot of people kind of feel that. So it's good to have that.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to the writer's block side of things. I'm a writer, and it kind of just makes you feel seen when you see something like that in a film. When you get writer's block or like any kind of like creative block, it's horrible, and like you think you're useless, and you're like, oh, what am I doing with my time if I'm not doing my work that I'm supposed to be doing? And then kind of seeing Kiki go through that, and like I said before, learning from those older women about how it's not always going to be easy, and sometimes the things that are really easy to you can sometimes just completely be turned on the head and be really difficult for you. And I think that is a really good message, and not one that I've seen a lot in other films.
There's an interesting difference that I noticed between, because I flicked through, I was changing my the dub from Japanese to English and kind of flicking through different segments. And a really interesting thing is that in the English dub, in the Disney dub, the artist says to Kiki, oh, just stop thinking about it and it'll all come back naturally. And in the Japanese version, she's kind of like, no, I still really struggle with my art. I just have to work really hard. it seems like a completely different message, which is really interesting between the two versions, I thought.
I think both kind of can work, can't they? I've heard of stories. I'm not a writer, prolifically at least, but I know some writers say, I just need to turn up and write some words, and it might flow out. If it doesn't, then I'll come back the next day. And some say, I need to wait for that strike of inspiration to come and hit me, and then it kind of goes through. So it could be either. I don't know. You guys are the more creative side of this here pod recording, I guess.
No, I think you're right. I think that you could view it in either way, and I think both work. I know for me, I'm very much the first person that you said, where it's like, I'll just sit down and write and hope that something good comes out.
I think that's absolutely a perfect way to maybe head to the scores.
Hello, I'm Sam Pay.
And I'm Martin Zott-Zorstwick.
And together we host a show called Song by Song, where we deal with the music of Tom Waits. We've been going since 2015. Every week we talk about a new track. We've made our way through 15 seasons so far of his music.
And now we're going back to the early years. And if you haven't listened to Tom Waits before, it's not the growly stuff. It's not the stuff where he's hitting an automobile with a bone for percussion. It's a nice, easy way into his music.
If that sounds like something you would be interested in, you should check out our website, songbysongpodcast.com, or put Song by Song into your podcatcher of choice.
I think you're on mute.
Workday starting to sound the same?
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
Welcome to the Flixwatcher spreadsheet of dreams. All of our scores are out of 5, and you may have decimal places if you wish. And we will start with the recommendability, please.
Rachel.
I would give this film It's difficult because if somebody's really not into anime, I don't know if it's the first film I'd recommend for them to watch. But I would obviously I recommended it to Faye, and that's why we chose it. I'd maybe give it like a 3.5. I would recommend it, but I would have to have the right person to recommend it to.
So, I mean, you call it anime. Both of you call it anime. Helen, would you class this as like anime or? Well,
I'd give the subgenre of Ghibli because it's kind of like its own genre in that with the directors, with the style, with the studio, etc. I guess anime for me is more like Ghost in the Shell, that kind of thing. Whereas Ghibli refers exclusively to that studio and that kind of period, whereas anime I tend to associate a bit more with maybe adult animation. But that's just me.
So 3.5, you're saying, Rachel?
I think so, yeah. I'm settling on it.
Faye?
I would give it a 4, I think, because like Rachel was saying, she didn't know she would recommend it to someone that wasn't into anime or Ghibli. I'm not a person that's into really anime or Ghibli, and I really enjoyed it. So I feel that I could then recommend it to someone that maybe it was similar to me and they think that they're not into that type of film, but then they would watch it and enjoy it. So yeah, I would give it a 4 because I think it's easy viewing, it's comforting, it's for kids and for adults. I think I would recommend it.
Helen?
I really like it, and I think it's really, really beautiful, and I think it's a great kind of, story where the leading female characters are not obsessed with being beautiful or finding a man or anything like that. So I think it's a really important kind of female-led film. But that said, in terms of Ghibli films that I'd recommend instantly, it's not up there with like My Neighbor Totoro. Yeah, it is called that, which would be kind of an instant 5. And it's kind of a strange one. I don't know how much kind of young boys would get out of this. I don't know. I've never been a young boy, but there is kind of a little bit. I wouldn't recommend it as universally as I would Totoro, but I do think if you've never seen it, it is quite a good introduction, and it has a talking cat in it. So I can't not give it a good recommendation. So yeah, a good solid 4.
I'm going to go for a 4.1 here. I think I liked it a lot, but I think I echo some of the things that Helen's saying. That I've not seen all the Ghibli films, and this is certainly for me, I don't know why, one of the ones I hadn't heard of. And having seen things like Spirited Away, which kind of just completely like had my mind blown as to how the story propagated. I'm yet to see Totoro. It's probably one of the biggest failings in my life, or Howl's Moving Castle. So I know I've got a lot of catching up to do, but there's still, whenever I speak to people at Ghibli, this doesn't seem to be top of their list, and I can already see kind of why that is. There's a lot to take away from it. There's lots of great stuff here, but even if I'd have seen this as a young boy, I think I would have still totally enjoyed it. And maybe that's just me being different to other young boys. I don't know what that means, but I don't think it necessarily means. I mean, I grew up watching Little Mermaid and Cinderella and stuff like that, as well as Aladdin and stuff. So having a female protagonist was never a reason to not watch a film. And having that kind of what would have been a secret message of here's a female protagonist surrounded by lots of other female characters, that would have been something that I wouldn't have got onboarded, but I wouldn't have shied away from it. So I think it's definitely one I would actually show to young boys ahead of like Snow White and ahead of Little Mermaid, I think. Repeat viewing. So I'm going to go for 4.1. Repeat viewing score. Rachel.
For me, repeat viewing score is like a solid 4.5. I go back to it when I'm feeling ill. It's like a duvet day film. Like, get all your baked goods around you and get your duvet on and just get back into like a lovely, like sweet little thing that's just, it's like comfort food. It's lovely. And I wouldn't say you're riveted every time you watch it, but it's just like a warm hug. It's lovely. So 4.5.
Faye.
I would give it a 4 again, I think. Echoing a lot of the stuff that Rach just said, I think that it's probably now definitely something that I'm going to watch maybe when I'm not feeling very well or when I want to be like comforted. It's very nice and like kind of feel good to put on in that situation. And also I just want to see more of Jiji all the time.
Jiji in English or Jiji in Japanese with subtitles?
Ooh, well, I think my next watch is going to be Jiji in Japanese, so I will report back when I've seen that version.
Please do. Helen?
So definitely, if anyone is going to repeat view this, then please, or first time watch it, then I really, really do recommend that you don't listen to the American one, because I just felt that it just changed the tone, and I don't know, wherever you can, try and have the original language one. I'm going to go a 3 for repeat viewing. I really enjoyed watching it again, but because there's so many other Studio Ghibli that I haven't seen, I would probably look to go for one that I haven't seen over rewatching this again anytime soon.
I think people typically say, don't watch the dubbed version of anything, but there always seems to be a bit of a leniency when it comes to animation, and particularly people talk about Ghibli, and it does tend to depend. I think it does tend to depend on the voice characters that they cast, and I don't think this is their strongest version of the casting for the non-Japanese version, because everyone here said that Jiji in the English language version irritated them to some extent. I think that maybe does lend to its repeat viewing, because I think certainly in the latter Ghiblis, they did tend to pick voice actors that would suit them better. So maybe this is like a bit too early, and Phil Hartman's more of a character voice actor than and maybe just wasn't the right voice for Jiji. I don't know why it was him. I thought it was Richard. Is it Richard Kind, who played that character in Inside Out?
Oh yeah. Oh God, what's in the elephant?
Yeah, the weird elephant thing that's in her kind of dream realm. I thought it was the same guy that did that. Bing Bong. That's
Bing
it.
Bong.
Not Bingo Bango. Yeah. That's Jason Jack's song. So I thought it was him. So I was quite surprised it was Phil Hartman. But yeah, it was a bit grating, unfortunately. So yeah, definitely next time I watch it, it's going to be in the Japanese version. But it just means I'll have to make sure I'm fully awake. I will watch it again, certainly. But as Helen said, I've watched maybe 5 Ghiblis. There's all of them now, apart from one, should be on Netflix. So I need to watch those first before coming back to this. So I'm going to give it a 3.1. Small screen score. Rachel.
I've only ever seen it on the small screen. I don't think it particularly, I wouldn't know, but I don't think it's lost anything from being there. I would obviously love to see it on a big screen. It's a hard one because I literally have no comparison. 4.3, because it's such a comfort film.
Faye?
I am going to give it a 3, I think, because I haven't seen it on a big screen either, but I could only assume that the beautiful animation would look amazing on a cinema screen. And I don't know if we maybe lose some of that on a smaller screen. I was also thinking about if people were watching it on their phones and stuff, maybe they'd miss some of the little like intricacies of the animation. So yeah, I think I would give it a 3.
Okay, Helen, small screen score.
Yeah, so again, I've only ever seen this kind of on a TV size screen, and I've seen a couple of Studio Ghiblis in the cinema. So I'm going to give it a 4. I don't think it loses anything particularly on a TV size screen. I don't think you should go any smaller than that.
I'm going a bit higher, 4.5. Rachel?
I think I'd probably go for like a 3.9. It's when I was thinking back about when I'd watched it in the past, I was like, oh, it's a very chill film. Like, not a lot happens. And more did happen than I remembered. But because I'd forgotten how much happened, I think perhaps maybe it's not as engaging as it could be. A lot of the introductory scenes of the film are quite slow paced, and it's only when you get towards the very end and when she has lost that ability to fly that you start to really get engaged with her story. It's not like action packed and engaging. So yeah, I'd say like a 3.9.
Faye?
Yeah, I'm going to go a bit lower and maybe give it a 2.5, just because similar themes to what Rachel's just said. I think that when I was watching it, I didn't feel like I was hooked on it, like I wanted to know what happened next. It was just very nice and very chill and very calming to watch. But I didn't feel like, ooh, what's going to happen? So in terms of like keeping me engaged, I kind of think it just plods along. Like, it plods along nicely, like that's not an insult, but I just don't think that it really grabbed me and made me want to, like, maybe if I went to the toilet, would I pause it? I mean, probably like the first time I watched it potentially, but I think if I watched it again, I'd just leave it going while I went to the toilet, like made a cup of tea or whatever. Yeah.
So what was that score again, sorry?
2.5.
Helen?
I'm going to go a 3.7, I think. It's really strange. I really enjoyed it and I would recommend it, but it doesn't give you that feeling that, you have to be super engaged in it.
Yeah. And I think that ties in with why I started watching in subtitles and then just switched to English, because I didn't feel massively drawn to it. I did like the start, and this kind of ties in with what we discussed during the conversation, where she's 13 and then she's just got to go off, and because she's a witch, everyone kind of understands that, and no one really tries to hold her back apart from her dad saying, "No, we're supposed to go camping," but even that's not really that big of a problem. So it kind of starts off in that way, but then it just doesn't really, for me, like you others said, it wasn't really like and what happens next? Oh, and what happens next? So it was plodding along is good. So I think engagement 3.5 for me, and that gives us an overall score of 3.725. That's a fairly decent score. First Ghibli film that we're recording, at least. We don't know if anyone else comes out before this one comes out. But yeah, thank you very much for bringing it to us, guys.
There's one thing that we didn't talk about, and my cat was sitting on my notes, and she's just got off. And post credit scene. Did you stay for that?
What, the flying?
Well, the whole like after story kind of thing, which doing it in 1989 kind of like Pip's Marvel, yeah,
and finishes off with the lovely little letter that she's written to her parents.
Oh, I'll have to go back and watch that.
Which, by the way, I love her mum. Her mum is great.
Yes, her mum is great, yeah.
Well, that's quite good, actually, because one of my main problems with it was that it doesn't seem to have... I guess it follows her for time, but I didn't feel it had like that satisfying conclusion to her kind of arc.
It's in the end credits.
Okay, I'll go back and watch that. All right, nice one. Rachel, Faye, tell us all about your podcast and where people could find you online.
So we are Her Dark Materials, a His Dark Materials recap podcast where we go through chapter by chapter. You can find us at HDM Pod on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. And you can find us as Her Dark Materials on pretty much any podcasting platform.
And Faye's happy with that. She's nodding at.
I'm nodding. Yes, I'm happy with that. Rach did a great job. Yes, that is our podcast. And come along and join us if you're a fan of His Dark Materials, or if you're not, give it a try and see what you think. We're spoiler free, so we won't spoil you.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Enjoyed this episode of Flixwatcher podcast? Why not leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? You can also follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter, and we're at FlixWatcher on Instagram. Thanks as always to the mighty people for their mighty tunes, and Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills. If you're looking to get your podcast edited as sweet as this, get in touch with Ben, and that's Rockwood, ROKK Wood Audio. Tell them Flixwatcher sent you.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.
These are violent criminals, so they're not going to go down easy.
ABC Tuesdays.
Let's get this done.
The Rookie is back.
We have 2 new rookies starting today.
Howdy.
Being a cop is stressful 24/7. Every year on the job is different.
And Training Day
We have a serial killer at large.
never ends.
We need an ambulance!
The Rookie. All new Tuesdays on ABC and stream on Hulu.